I thought I'd do a couple more examples of completing the square with you. These are actually the ones we did in class, but it might be helpful to see them again. So this is the first one we did, which completed the square. X squared plus 4x equals 21. And if the coefficient on the x squared is 1, then we can go ahead and just take the middle term, or the linear term, the 4x, divide it by 2, and then square it. Then we'll get 4 over 2 squared, 2 squared, or 4. So anything I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to add 4 to both sides of the equation here. And we have completed the square. X plus 2 squared, that's the b over 2, is equal to 25. We'll go ahead and take the square root, and the square undo each other. And when we take square root, we get the plus and minus. And we have x plus 2 equals plus or minus 5. Because the 2 and the 5 are like terms, we're going to have to split this up into 2 equations. And then we'll end up subtracting 2 from both sides of both equations, and then we'll be done there. So we're going to have x plus 2 equals 5, or x plus 2 equals negative 5. We'll subtract 2 from both sides, and then we'll get our 2 answers. Let's look at another example, very similar. X squared plus 16x equals 1. If you want to pause the video and try to do it, you can go ahead and do that. Again, the coefficient on the x squared is a 1, so we can go ahead and just jump right into finding b over 2 squared, which is 16 over 2 squared. Turns into 8 squared, which is 64. So we're going to add 64 to both sides of our equation. Anything we do to one side, we got to do to the other. The left-hand side is a completed square. It will factor into x plus b over 2, which will be 8. And then, remember the silly joke, what happens when you put root beer in a square cup? The root and square undo each other, and you're left with beer. Well, nothing that exciting in this one, but the square root and the square undo each other, and we have x plus 8 equals plus or minus the square root of 65. We don't need to split this up into 2 equations. We could, but we don't need to because the 8 and the square root of 65 are not really like terms. So we're just going to subtract 8 from both sides, and we'll get x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus square root of 65, and that'll be it for that one. So x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus square root of 65. Okay. Another example from we had in class here is 5x squared plus 15x equals 25, and we wanted to complete the square. But we need it in the x squared plus bx equals c form. We want the coefficient to be a 1 there. In order to do that, I'm going to need to divide everything by 5. So I get x squared plus 3x equals 5. Now we can go ahead and find b over 2 squared, which will be 3 over 2 squared, and that gives me 9 over 4. So this time we have a fraction, but that's alright. It's the same thing. We're going to add 9 over 4 to both sides. And what we also did is we wrote 5 as 20 over 4. So I think I made a little thought cloud here. 5 is the same thing as what over 4, and it's going to be 20. So we do that to get a common denominator. We have a completed square. And on the right-hand side is 29 over 4. The b over 2 is 3 halves, and we have x plus 3 halves squared equals 29 over 4. And we're going to go ahead and take the square root of both sides and get the plus and minus. X plus 3 halves is equal to plus or minus square root of 29 over 2. Square root of 4 is 2, so that's why we got the 2 there. I don't need 2 separate equations because of the fact that the square root of 29 and 3 are not like terms. So we can go ahead and just subtract 3 halves from both sides. The 3 halves and the square root of 29 over 2 both have a common denominator of 2, so we can just combine them as one single fraction. So x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus square root of 29 over 2. We'll do one more. We'll do another one with fractions, as I have a hard time writing the s here. I think the s ends up looking kind of funny. That's alright. Alright, so 5x squared minus 7x equals 2. And we need x squared plus bx equals c form. So we would like to have the coefficient on the x squared to be a 1. So we're going to divide everything by 5. X squared minus 7/5 x equals 2/5. The b over 2 is the same thing as b times a half. Half is the same thing as division by 2. Negative 7/5 times 1/2, quantity squared, equals negative 7 over 10, quantity squared, which is 49 over 100. And that's what we're going to go ahead and add to both sides to complete the square here. Okay. So we have a completed square on the left-hand side. We're going to do a little thought cloud here to get a common denominator with the 2/5 and the 49 over 100. The left-hand side factors into x minus something. The right-hand side, combine our like terms, is 89 over 100. The completed square side is x minus 7 over 10 squared. Undo the square. We're going to take the square root of both sides, get the plus and minus. X minus 7 over 10 is equal to plus or minus square root of 89 over 10. And the last thing we'll do is we'll add 7 over 10 to both sides. We didn't need two equations because the 7 and the square root of 89 are not like terms. And they both had common denominator of 10. And there we have it.